Hello, welcome back. Episode 2 of That Midget. And in this one, I'm going to be working on the back axle. And the minefield of the back brakes. Which isn't really a minefield, but a lot of people say it is a minefield. Anyway, enjoy the video. But before you settle down with a lovely warm cup of beer or coffee, please check you're subscribed, and if you're not, why on earth not? I don't understand. If you fancy contacting me, then it's churchhouseclassics, and that's all one word, @gmail.com. And if you fancy supporting the channel or buying me a pint, then there's a PayPal me link specifically for this purpose scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Both email and support the channel PayPal me link are in the description below this feature. Enjoy it. I've blown the pistons out on this one. You can see there's a fairly extensive amount of corrosion on that piston. The rest of them, though, it's not horrific, but that amount of corrosion there is going to tear the seal. Feel it with your fingernail. It's where the piston's been sat for far too long against the seal. So there's that one, and then we've got this one. So all I do, take the banjo bolt out, put a pad in between the two pistons just so that they don't shoot out into each other. A little bit of compressed air. Oops, that bleed nipple's open. Grapefruit everywhere. Bleed nipple properly closed, and now we will try again. Right, so that's out. There's where, big lump of rust there, just on the outside edge of the cup. I've got no history as to when these were rebuilt, so there's a reasonable chance that the seals on these things are as old as the Ark. So with that in mind, it would be sensible, I think, to get them refurbished. So I'm not going to fit the cheap pattern parts on. I'll get these refurbished because I think they're in reasonable order. So I've undone the crosshead screw. There's 3 screws. 2 of these screws hold the drum on. One of the screws just holds the drive shaft in place. And yeah, it's all kind of come apart. There's something catastrophically gone wrong in here. Because okay, there's a certain amount of inflow on the hub, and once the hub is pulled forwards and onto this face here, it shouldn't move, and it does. Even with the drum in place, and even with everything pulled in tight, it's moving. So I need to undo the hub nut. Now, the hub nut is a little tiny, thin little bastard here, very thin. And it's 1 inch and 7/8 of an inch in diameter, or 1 inch 7/8 in diameter, which is about 48 millimeters. Yeah, I've just had to order a box spanner. I tried with this because it's a bearing race. It very much is the preload's set based on the tightness of the nut, as it is with most of these things. But looking through the manual, it seems to be about 120 foot-pounds, which is considerable, I'll be honest. So I'm not going to risk damage or risk losing limbs, because I'm very good at that. Right, socket supplied by an eBayer. That's a beautiful bit of kit. It looks like he's welded a 1/2 inch, probably 3/4 or something, socket into a cap on the end of a box spanner. Wasn't particularly expensive, wasn't particularly cheap, but I ordered it Friday and it arrived Saturday. Unbelievable. Now, the threads on these things, so we're on the right hand side, and it's a righty-tighty, lefty-loosey on the right hand side, but be aware, reverse threaded on the left hand side. So it's a lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. I think that's right. Anyway, let's see what's going on in here. These are fucking tight. You notice that just went then. That's beautiful. So box spanner is already worth its weight in gold. And let's see where we are. So nut off. I had already bent the lock tab back. This nut's not going to come off this fucking spanner now. So what he's done also is he's put 2 dimples in the end here, so that the nut doesn't disappear right up inside the unit. So I'm impressed. It's a nicely made bit of kit. Thank you very much. Link in the description for where I got this from. But if you haven't got one, get one. Right, now, then we get the lock washer off. And then in theory I should be able to pull the hub off. I don't actually know what holds the bearing in place on this now. There's a lot of grub in there though. It might need a puller to pull it off for now. Dirty bastard. Right, let's go and have a quick look at the manual. Oh my goodness. Come this way in the workshop. Ah, it's nearly October. My dad's car's still here. MOT on Saturday. Right, remove the hub, knock back the edge of the locking washer, unscrew the hub retaining nut, lotus, blah blah blah. Remove the lock washer from the axle casing end by lifting the washer so the key is freed from the locating groove with the hub puller. Pull off the hub complete with bearing and oil seal. Right, there you go. Need a hub puller, which I have got somewhere. Right, it's all a big old... I can't find my bloody puller. I've tried this style of puller. It's no good. It's not going to work. So I've given up on that. So I thought, right, bit of angle line across there with a slide hammer going through the centre. See if I can't slide hammer it off. Otherwise, I'll have to buy another puller. Well, so I need to drill a pair of holes for the studs to go through, and I'll hold the bar on with wheel studs. It can go on that way round. It can go on that way. No, it has to go on this way round. So, but there's a hole already on this one. Will that work? No, I'll do it again because I'm not going to be able to center it. So what I would normally do is we have put a piece of tape on there, and then what we'll do is we'll put the edge of the tape up to the wheel stud and wiggle it backwards and forwards, and we end up with 2 marks, one there, one there. Is that really any good? It's not bad. It's a circle there. I can see the top edge of the circle just there and there. So I'm going to go and drill those 2 holes out now. I need a wheel nut, which is there. So actually we've got already the dimensions of the wheel nut, so we know roughly how close we can get, and we don't need to keep the wheel nuts up dead tight. They just need to be hanging off the threads. So over to the bench. Oh, I've got my fucking lunch today. And then we're in the vise and drill 2 holes, I think. Whoops. One and whoops, that was cool. That went squeak, didn't it? Right, and now bigger holes. Right, that's done that. And then let's just brush that off. Take off. Oh, it's nice and warm. Let's go and see if that fits. It wants really to fit over 2 of the, and the only reason I use angle iron is because it doesn't deform as much. And I don't want to be using enormous amounts of force to pull this thing off anyway. Right, so that'll fit there. Right, roughly marks the centre hole. So all I need to do now is drill something like an 8mm hole through that and fit a bolt and a nut and then my slide hammer onto it, I think. Running out of space on the bench again because I've tidied it like 55 fucking times today, but right, that's gone through. I can now mount in the vise. We'll cut that out too. Right, bolts. What I really want to do is that fits on the end of my slide wrench, so we want the bolt to go through, which is like that. Will work beautifully. That is going to be a M8, I reckon. M8. So an 8mm hole. Hole. Boop. We'll do that. That can come off there. That can go in there. That can go in there. Yeah, let's do it that way round. It's probably easiest. Wind the nut on. Doesn't need to be tight. That'll do that job, and then attach the slide hammer. Oh, there's my coffee there, look at that. Slide hammer goes on. That'll work. Now, so in theory, it should come off in the end, so to speak. Right, like that. How about that? Piece of piss. Who needs a puller when you've got a bit of angle iron and an 8mm drill bit? Right, so with the hub off, I can remove the back plate and deal with the back plate on the bench. So first and foremost, I'm going to give it a damn good clean up. And then I can put the shoes and everything back on with the springs in the correct location. There's a huge amount of gloop and shite on this thing. Let's get you parked. I did tidy this bench off completely just 2 days ago. It's all like under seal and stuff, but this is decades worth. Look at it all. So what I might do actually is strip these right down, give them a bloody good clean up, and then paint them, because they're not going to come off again for a very long time, I wouldn't have thought. But all of this shit on it. Now, first and foremost, we've got the slave. So what I want to do here really is undo the bleed nipple on the slave, take that out. Because it's a brand spanking new slave, let's just take the cylinders out and check that the seals are in there, that they are the right way round. It's not unheard of, folks. It is a brand new slave, but yeah, they're both looking good. Nice amount of lube in there, no detritus in the cylinder. Given the back plate a good clean up. Now, the slave can only go in one way round. It's got a roll pin there that corresponds with a hole there. What I need to do now is to put the giant E-clip on. And the easiest way to do that, people put these things on all different ways. And as you saw, when I took this thing apart, it was wrong. I tend to put them on so that the centre section here is pressed against the back plate and the top sections are not. The easiest way to put these on is using a bloody great big pipe wrench. So against the back of the pedestal, is it going to go? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. They're not always the easiest things to go on, I'll be honest. The other way I have done them in the past is to lay them over the top, get a screwdriver at the back end and lever the screwdriver backwards, risking life, fingers and limb. Right, that is so freaking close, it's ridiculous. Right, that is roughly in place. Now what you do is you get a big old socket and you go like that. That's how you get them on, easily. Now on these, there's going to be a challenge because the edge of the hub comes around here. And it could well be that this is going to interfere here with the edge of the hub. I'll measure that up in a second. Bleed nipple can go back in. I'll take these out because otherwise they're just going to fall out every 5 seconds. We've put the wheel cylinder in and we've also put the gator on the back for the handbrake linkage. Then comes great confusion. Great confusion abounds left, right and centre because the shoes... Each of the shoes is exactly the same. Okay? Which way around do they go? These are the old shoes. I don't know where they came from. These are... There's no markings on them as to the manufacturer, so I couldn't tell you. The new shoes that I've been given, and I put the masking tape on them just to protect the surfaces while I'm assembling. The new shoes have less, I'm going to say significantly less, about 1.5 centimetres, 15 mil, material on them, but they are the same width, within a millimetre of the same width. Okay, so I don't know where these came from, but these are contaminated, so they're not going back on. Now, the manual doesn't really give any clues, but I will come back. There is a clue in the manual. So when you're looking at the manual, it kind of gives you basic indications, rough indications, just tells you to reassemble it. It's really not very helpful. So this back plate here, I can tell because of the proximity of the cylinder and the handbrake lever. This is the left-hand rear drum, and it actually tells you exploding. No, it doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you this is the left-hand drum, but that's the left-hand drum and back plate. And what we've then got is we've got these pear-shaped holes. These are what I would call the pear-shaped hole. So the opposite end is a slot pear-shaped hole. Now on this diagram here, you can see the pear-shaped hole at the top and at the bottom. Oh, that's interesting. Right, okay. You can also see a very, very, very long trailing edge at the bottom here. I go to the previous page. Very, very, very similarly, we can see now this is the right-hand drum because we've got the damper arm in front of it. And we can see the pear-shaped hole going towards the front, and I can't see what's at the bottom, but I can see the slot there. So it does look like the pear-shaped hole needs to go on the forward-facing shoe at the top. And then I found this. This is done by a chap on the MG forum. Sorry, I will put a credit to you in the bottom of this piece of video. But what he's effectively saying here is front of the car, left-hand drum, a 1-inch cutback on the shoe is orientated towards the face of the motion. Now, I think he's possibly just overcomplicated this, because I think what he probably just should say is pear-shaped hole top on the forward-facing shoe and bottom on the rearward-facing shoe on each side. And I think that then fixes it, because that more or less matches what we've got in the manual. So we've got right-hand drum, forward-facing shoe, pear-shaped hole, and a diagram of the left-hand back plate, because we can tell that because the handbrake lever is towards the back end of it, and we've got a pear-shaped hole on the forward-facing shoe. So, with all that nonsense in mind, I have, let's bring you in a little bit closer. Can we see? Not really. We're looking at the back end of the bench. Let's come down here. Right, now, so the way that I would put these things together, having just cleaned everything up, in fact what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get some copper grease, because the shoe runs along these flat faces here, and also this handbrake lever runs along there, so I'm actually just going to put a little bit of copper grease in those locations, really just to help it. So my copper grease is running out. Lubed up the pin already. Now, so we are on the right-hand rear drum. So if I point it this way round, so you can actually see it in the direction. So that's the handbrake linkage. This is the forward face. So the front of the car is this way. Okay, so we want the pear-shaped hole to be at the top on this side. Oh yes. And then we want the non-pear-shaped hole, the slot, to be on this side. Okay, that's the orientation. Before I do this, I'm going to put there's a wobbly end on the spring here. Now, there is, again, some confusion about the wobbly spring, because on this diagram, this gent shows the wobbly spring actually going over the top and to the back of the handbrake lever. And I don't think that's right, because it doesn't fit. So we put the wobbly spring through the slots, and we put then the shoe through the slots, and then we manipulate everything, put the other end of the spring on there and stretch it over the other end of the handbrake linkage. It's a bit cack-handed, Richard, I know, but you get the drift. And what you end up with is something that looks very much like, we've not actually hit the wheel cylinder here. Come on, wheel cylinder, in you go. Why is that not going in the, there it is in now. Right, okay. Looks something very similar to that. So what we've effectively got is the spring pushing against the forward face, or the underside face of the handbrake lever. Because if I bend that spring round there, all it's going to do is force this lever to go at a funny angle, jaunty angle, and it just doesn't fit. Doesn't look right at all. You can see here also that the recess where the spring goes gives me access to the bolts, which makes life a lot easier, doesn't it? Okay, so right hand back plate, pear-shaped hole on the forward facing shoe, pear-shaped hole at the bottom on the rear facing shoe. There we go, that's cleared that up. No faffing around with long edges and short edges or all this other stuff that's just been amusing me online, just trying to find a correct answer. When I started actually looking at the diagrams in the Haynes manual, I started to realise, oh, actually it is in the Haynes manual, and probably also the various other manuals that are kicking around. Now, for the bottom shoe, sorry, for the bottom spring, for now, put it in on one end. Oh, sorry, that's come out the caliper up there. Put it on one end, have the shoe off the car, stretch it into position and drop it in. And that's loose. Why is that loose? That's loose probably because the adjuster is wound right in. But it's not going to fall out. No, it's not going to fall out. Right, that's pretty much that really. And what we can then do is we can get the drum, which is here. Brand spanking new drum. Should we get a knife, Richard? Oh. Brand spanking new drum. And that should fit really neatly over the top once the shoes are orientated. Now bear in mind, I've still got the paper on these because I haven't quite finished kind of, you know, putting my grubby hands all over them, and the paper just keeps the shoes nice and tidy. Now if we go to the back, we can now use my adjusting spanner, and we can wind this in, because this is wound right out at the moment. Right, that should be absolutely rock solid on there now, and it is. So go back a couple of turns, 1, 2, and that should now turn, and it does. Bear in mind the paper's still on there, so I don't want to go too berserk with that, but what I'm going to do now is put that back on the car and repeat for the other side. So the information, in conclusion, the information is in the manual, but you need to understand what you're looking at. Does that work? That works. Right, start putting this thing back together again. So really what I want to do here is clean up this face here, which is the mating face that the back of the drum goes onto, the back plate goes onto. Now the other thing I'm going to do here, you can see the big old curve here. that's what interferes with the circlip on the back of the master. So I'm basically going to use a flat wheel and just take a couple of mil off this edge here. Pop the camera over. Right. You will observe I'm going nowhere near any of the mounting holes. I can't see that this modification is going to cause any problems whatsoever with the mounting of the drum. Pouring down with rain, I'm afraid, folks. Sorry for the background noise. So this little bundle of joy here, this is the T-piece that goes on top of the back axle. And then the line that goes across the left-hand side and the right-hand side, which I need to remake up in both sides. I've opted to replace the flexi line, and it's probably a good job I did, actually, because when I started to undo the nut, you can see the nut has just sheared the steel chassis brake line off. That's really not uncommon. Right, so let's go and have a look-see underneath and see what's going on. Take the non-flickering torch with us. Have a quick look outside the workshop door. Weather's coming in. Yeah, nice. Right, okay. Now, let's get under here, because there's a couple of things I wanted to show you. So if I go like that on there. Now, prop shaft is one of the things I wanted to show you. Can we get out of the way of the torch, perhaps? Maybe we could do it like this, because the torch is magnetic. That works. Right, okay. Prop shaft. So, can you hear that? And rotate it 90 degrees. So basically, this cup and this cup, something's gone big time wrong in there, so that's going to vibrate like anything. So I need to take the prop shaft off. The brake line is, if I can get my hand up here, there's that one there, and you can see that's not beautiful, is it? It runs down to there and then runs along the underside of the car, and at no point is this brake line beautiful. So I'm going to get it off in one bit so I can make up a pattern. This is the fuel line here. It's unlikely it's going to catch anything, but still, I'm not sure I'd have the fuel line looping down like that. But never mind. The fuel line's going to get changed as well, I think. I will go over it, but we get that to sit there. That does sit there. So the fuel line is heavily pitted up here, really badly pitted. So I think replacement of the fuel line is the only option there. Now, prop shaft on these is a bit of a bugger to get to, because we've got the flange for now on the back end of the prop shaft to the differential. Good access there. The other flange is through that hole there. There's another flange. We're not really high enough up in the air to be able to do this, but we'll give it a go. I can get this one undone here. That one will undo quite easily. Get the prop shaft off and see what's going on with it. Certainly this UJ at the back here is gone. Right, I am going to, because it's not a lot of fun wrestling with lighting so that you don't get flickering camera, and the weather coming in, and I need to close this door anyway, and I'm just going to crack on with it, but I don't need to video it. If I come up with any challenges, I will stop doing what I'm doing and video the challenges, because I know you love the challenges. You love to see the problem solving, which is not a problem, because I like to share that too. Yes. And then there's a TR7 camshaft there. Spoiler, we're going to be building and shimming out a TR7 cylinder head. Oh yes. Right, first of all, cup of coffee, I think. Right, it's not a grass snake. This is the remains, or the chassis line that I pulled off the car. Now, it snapped off right on the very, very tip. There was surface rust there, but pitted on the inside edge. And The worst bit was here. So this is the bit where it runs along parallel to the prop shaft, and then it loops up and onto the top of the rail. And here, it just wasn't quite so pretty. And I thought, well, by the time I've grovelled underneath and remade that end, I might as well take the whole damn thing off and replace it in its entirety, which is more or less exactly what I've done. So it hooks on to the pressure differential switch, which is just about there. And let's go down. Oh my goodness, right, we're ready? So here you can see, replace the 2 lines on top of the axle, new flexi, and replaced the line, which I still need to just finish off moulding into shape, but it's in. I'm happy enough with it. That's the brake line done now, front to back. I think I am pretty much there with brakes now. I've ordered up the parts to replace the lock tabs, bearing and the seal on the rear hubs. They should be here tomorrow, so I can get those all back together. I'm not going to do anything with the prop shaft yet because I need to get the car a lot higher. So what I might need to do is to once the brakes are running, get it off the stands, put it on the hydraulic ramps and work on it from that perspective. I'm just trying to think, yeah, because I can do that, because I can put the hub back on, but I can withdraw the drive shaft so that I can still rotate the prop shaft while it's on the hydraulic stands, or I could just jack it right up in the air and use some of my long stands. But these are less of a problem than the ones that are underneath the car further forward. I'm just going to shuffle forwards. If I turn the light round, well, that's bright, isn't it? There's a UJ up here. You can probably just about see it. But I need to be properly underneath it so I can hang off it and see what I'm doing. And it's not going to work with me lying with this sort of access under here. So I'll do that. And while I'm doing that, I could do the fuel line as well, because it'd be a lot easier to route the fuel line. This was a struggle getting this brake line through, but we've done it. I'm keen to get something done. Right.